For 7 months, nobody had heard 10-year-old Eli Morgan speak. Not his mother. Not his doctors. Not the private therapists his billionaire mother paid thousands of dollars to see him. Then one rainy evening, a quiet single dad walked into the mansion to repair a broken security system. He saw Eli sitting alone by the window. The boy suddenly raised his hands and signed something. The single dad froze. He answered in perfect sign language. "I know what you're afraid of." Eli's eyes widened. Across the room, Billionaire CEO Audrey Sterling watched in disbelief. Then her son signed one more sentence. "He was there when they took me." Audrey turned toward the stranger. And for the first time, she wondered who the quiet single father really was. Rain covered the windows of Sterling House that evening. The mansion stood on a private hill outside Boston, surrounded by tall iron gates, security cameras, and acres of dark forest. It was the kind of home most people only saw in magazines. But inside, it didn't feel luxurious. It felt empty. 10-year-old Eli Morgan sat alone beside the enormous living room window. His knees were pulled toward his chest. A gray blanket covered his shoulders. He watched the rain silently. On the other side of the room, his mother stood with a phone pressed against her ear. Audrey Sterling had spent years controlling billion-dollar negotiations without blinking. She could fire executives, break business deals, walk into a room full of investors and make everyone listen. But tonight, she couldn't make her own son say one word. "Doctor." She listened. "You're telling me the therapy isn't working?" Another pause. Audrey closed her eyes. "I don't care how difficult it is. Find someone else." She ended the call. For 7 months, Eli had barely spoken. Before that, he had been different. He talked constantly. He asked questions about everything. Why the moon followed their car. Why birds didn't fall from the sky. Why his mother worked so much. Then one night, he stopped. No explanation. No warning. Just silence. Doctors called it trauma. Psychologists called it selective mutism. Audrey called it unbearable. She walked toward him. "Eli." He didn't move. "Sweetheart." Nothing. Audrey crouched beside him. "Mommy's here." Eli slowly looked at her. His eyes were full of fear. Then he turned back toward the window. Audrey felt helpless. She had hired the best doctors in the country. Nothing worked. She had even converted an entire wing of the mansion into a private therapy center. Nothing worked. Then the security system failed. The mansion's main gate camera went black. 2 exterior cameras stopped working. The backup generator began flashing warnings. Audrey immediately called her security director. "Fix it." "We're trying." "When?" "We don't know." Audrey looked at the clock. 8:42 p.m. "I need someone here tonight." "We're sending a technician." "How long?" "At least an hour." Audrey sighed. Then the doorbell rang. She frowned. Nobody should have arrived yet. A security guard opened the front door. A man stood outside holding a small black toolbox. He looked nothing like the technicians Audrey normally hired. No expensive company uniform. No corporate logo. Just a dark jacket, worn boots, and a simple gray shirt. He was in his late 30s. "Come." "Quiet." The guard checked his identification. "Name?" "Ryan Cole." "Company?" "Independent contractor." Audrey approached. "You're here for the security system?" Ryan nodded. "Yes." She studied him. "You came quickly." "Your technician called me." Audrey stepped aside. "Fix it." Ryan walked toward the security room. He didn't ask questions. Didn't look impressed by the mansion. Didn't stare at expensive paintings. Didn't even seem interested in Audrey. That caught her attention. Most people reacted when they met her. Ryan didn't. He simply opened his toolbox. Within minutes, he was examining the security panel. Audrey watched from the doorway. "Can you fix it?" Ryan looked at the wiring. "Someone didn't just break it." "What?" "They bypassed the backup." Audrey's expression changed. What does that mean? Someone knew how your system works. Before Audrey could respond, a small sound came from the hallway. Ryan looked up. Eli was standing there. He was watching him. Ryan's eyes met the boy's. Eli froze. Ryan slowly lowered himself to one knee. He didn't approach. He simply waited. Eli stared at him. Then, something unexpected happened. Eli raised both hands. His fingers moved quickly. Ryan's face changed. He understood. Audrey stared. What did he say? Ryan didn't answer immediately. Eli signed again. Ryan responded with his hands. Audrey looked between them. You know sign language? Ryan nodded. Yes. Audrey stepped closer. What did he say? Ryan looked at Eli, then back at Audrey. He asked if I'm here to fix the cameras. Audrey's heart skipped. He hasn't communicated like that in months. Ryan looked at Eli. The boy signed again. Ryan's expression became serious. Audrey noticed. What did he say this time? Ryan hesitated, then answered. He says the cameras aren't broken. Audrey frowned. What? Ryan looked toward the security panel. He says someone turned them off. Audrey stared at him. How would my son know that? Ryan didn't answer. Eli suddenly signed again. This time, Ryan looked directly at Audrey. He says, someone has been watching the house. Audrey felt cold. She immediately turned toward the security guard. Lock the gates. The guard ran. Ryan stood. How long has he been saying this? Audrey shook her head. He doesn't speak. Ryan looked at Eli. He doesn't have to. The words hit Audrey harder than she expected. For the first time in 7 months, someone had found a way to communicate with her son. But Ryan wasn't finished. He walked toward the security monitor. The screen showed the driveway. One camera suddenly came back online. Ryan stared at it. A black SUV was parked beyond the gate. No headlights. No visible driver. Ryan's expression changed. How long has that been there? Audrey looked at the security guard. Check the license plate. The guard zoomed in. The image blurred. Ryan stepped closer, then froze. He recognized the vehicle. Not because of the company. Not because of the license plate. Because of a small symbol on the rear window. A silver bird. Ryan's jaw tightened. Audrey noticed. You know that symbol? Ryan remained silent. Eli suddenly began signing rapidly. Ryan turned toward him. The boy's face had gone pale. Ryan answered him in sign language. Eli nodded. Audrey couldn't understand what they were saying. What is it? Ryan looked at her. Your son knows that vehicle. Audrey swallowed. How? Ryan looked at Eli. Because he saw it the night he stopped speaking. Silence filled the room. Audrey slowly walked toward her son. Eli. The boy backed away. Ryan immediately stepped between them, not aggressively, but protectively. Audrey stopped. She looked at Ryan. Who are you? Ryan didn't answer. Audrey's voice became firmer. I asked who you are. Ryan finally looked directly into her eyes. My name is Ryan Cole. That's not the answer. Ryan looked toward the black SUV outside, then quietly said, I used to work in places where people disappeared. Audrey stared at him. What kind of places? Ryan's expression hardened. The kind where you don't get a second chance. Outside, the black SUV suddenly started its engine. Ryan immediately moved toward the window. The vehicle drove away, but before disappearing into the rain, Eli raised his hands. Ryan looked at him, then translated the final message. Audrey whispered. What did he say? Ryan looked at her. He said, They know you're here. And Audrey realized. Her son's silence had never been the real mystery. The real mystery was what he had seen, and why someone was still looking for him. The black SUV disappeared into the rain. For several seconds, nobody inside Sterling House moved. Audrey stared through the window. Then she turned toward Ryan. "You knew that vehicle." Ryan didn't deny it. "I recognized the symbol. The silver bird." He nodded. "What does it mean?" Ryan looked toward Eli. The boy was still standing in the hallway, clutching his gray blanket. "Not here," Ryan said. Audrey frowned. "This is my house." Ryan looked at the security cameras. "That's exactly why." Audrey understood. Someone might be listening. She immediately ordered the security staff to leave the room. Within minutes, only Audrey, Ryan, and Eli remained. Ryan closed the curtains, then checked the doors. Audrey watched him carefully. "You're not a normal technician." "No." "Then who are you?" Ryan hesitated. "I was a Navy SEAL." Audrey froze. "You?" Ryan nodded. "For 8 years. Why didn't your records show that?" "Because most of what I did wasn't public." Audrey looked toward Eli. "Were you assigned to him?" "No." "Then how do you know what he's trying to say?" Ryan looked at the boy. "Because I learned sign language while working with a unit that rescued hostages." Audrey's expression softened. "Hostages?" Ryan nodded. "People who couldn't speak because speaking could get them killed." Audrey slowly understood. Eli wasn't refusing to speak. He was afraid to. Ryan sat on the floor across from Eli. He raised his hands. Eli immediately responded. Ryan's face became serious. Audrey whispered, "What is he saying?" "He remembers the night." "What night?" "The night he stopped speaking." Audrey's eyes filled with tears. "Ask him what happened." Ryan signed carefully. Eli stared at him. Then his hands began moving. Slowly, carefully. Ryan watched every movement. Finally, he looked at Audrey. "He says there were 3 men." Audrey covered her mouth. "Where?" "Inside the house." Audrey shook her head. "That night," security said, "nobody entered." Ryan looked at her. "Your security was wrong." "What did they want?" Ryan turned toward Eli. The boy signed again. Ryan's expression changed. "He says they were looking for something." "What?" Eli pointed toward Audrey, then toward the upstairs hallway. Ryan translated. "They wanted something your husband left behind." Audrey froze. "My husband?" Eli nodded. Audrey's husband, Daniel Sterling, had died 3 years earlier in what everyone believed was a boating accident. At least, that's what she had been told. What did Daniel leave behind? Eli looked terrified. Ryan asked him again. The boy pointed toward his own chest, then made a small key-shaped motion with his fingers. Ryan understood. "A key." Audrey frowned. "What key?" Eli suddenly looked toward the staircase, then signed. "Blue room." Audrey's face went pale. There was one room in the mansion nobody used anymore. Daniel's private study. Its door had been locked since his death. Audrey had never entered it again. She whispered, "That's impossible." Ryan stood. "Why?" "Because I had the room sealed." "Who has access?" Audrey thought. "Only my chief security officer." Ryan looked at her. "And your security officer?" "David." "Where is he tonight?" Audrey reached for her phone. She called. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. Ryan's expression hardened. "That's not good." 10 minutes later, Ryan and Audrey stood outside Daniel's old study. A heavy wooden door separated them from the room. Audrey held the key. Her hands trembled. "I haven't opened this door in 3 years." Ryan looked at her. "Maybe you should have." She inserted the key. The lock clicked. The door opened. Dust covered everything. An old desk. Bookshelves. Photographs. A leather chair. Nothing appeared unusual. Then Eli walked inside. For the first time since Ryan had met him, the boy moved without hesitation. He walked directly toward Daniel's desk. Ryan followed. Eli pointed underneath it. Ryan crouched. There was a small metal box attached beneath the desk. Ryan pulled it free. It had no keyhole. Only a fingerprint scanner. Audrey stared. My husband never told me about this. Eli placed his hand against the scanner. Nothing happened. Ryan looked at him. Try again. Eli shook his head. Then looked at Audrey. Audrey slowly stepped forward. She placed her hand on the scanner. The box opened. Inside was a small black drive. And a handwritten note. Audrey picked it up. Her husband's handwriting. She immediately recognized it. The note contained only one sentence. If Eli stops speaking, someone has found the archive. Audrey's knees almost gave out. Ryan caught her arm. She stared at the words. What archive? Ryan picked up the drive. I think we're about to find out. Later that night, Ryan connected the drive to an isolated computer. A video appeared. Daniel Sterling was sitting behind his old desk. He looked exhausted. Audrey covered her mouth. Daniel. The recording began. If you're watching this, Audrey, then something went wrong. Daniel looked directly into the camera. I discovered that someone inside our company has been selling confidential medical research. Audrey's eyes widened. I confronted them. Daniel continued. They threatened me. Then they threatened Eli. Audrey began crying. I couldn't trust the police. I couldn't trust my security team. So I created a backup. The archive contains everything. Names, payments, accounts, recordings, everything. Daniel paused, then looked toward the camera. The final access key isn't inside this room. Audrey leaned closer. Where is it? Daniel's voice became quieter. Eli knows where I hid it. Audrey looked at her son. Eli stared at the screen, then suddenly raised his hands. Ryan translated. He says, That's not all. Audrey looked at him. What else? Ryan's expression changed. Eli signed again. Ryan slowly translated. Dad didn't die. Audrey froze. The room became completely silent. What? Eli pointed at the screen. Then signed. He told me to keep quiet until he came back. Audrey's face went pale. Ryan stared at the video. Daniel's recording suddenly ended. The screen went black. Then a message appeared. Archive compromised. Ryan immediately disconnected the computer. Too late. A security alarm began screaming throughout the mansion. Audrey looked toward the hallway. Ryan stood. Someone just accessed the system. Then every light in Sterling House went out. And from somewhere downstairs, a door slowly opened. Every light inside Sterling House went out. Audrey froze. Somewhere downstairs, a door slowly opened. Ryan immediately stepped in front of her and Eli. Stay behind me. Audrey grabbed Eli's hand. The boy was trembling. Ryan looked toward the hallway. Don't make a sound. A shadow moved across the staircase. Then another. Ryan quietly reached for his phone. No signal. Someone had jammed the network. He looked at Audrey. Your security system isn't failing. What do you mean? Someone has taken control of it. A loud crash came from downstairs. Eli jumped. Ryan immediately crouched beside him. Look at me. Eli looked up. Ryan signed slowly. Stay calm. Eli nodded. Ryan pointed toward the hallway. Do you know another way out? Eli hesitated, then pointed toward Daniel's study. Ryan followed his gesture. Behind the bookshelf was a narrow wooden panel. Audrey stared. I didn't know that was there. Ryan pushed it. The panel opened. A hidden staircase appeared. Your husband built this. Audrey nodded slowly. He never told me. Ryan looked at Eli. The boy was already walking toward it. They entered the hidden passage. Ryan closed the panel behind them. A few seconds later. Heavy footsteps entered the study. Someone shouted, "Search the room." Audrey covered her mouth. Ryan whispered, "They're here for the drive." The hidden staircase led beneath the mansion. The air was cold. Old pipes ran across the ceiling. Eli walked beside Ryan, holding his hand. Audrey followed behind them. Finally, they reached a small underground room. Inside was an old computer terminal. A single monitor flickered to life. A message appeared. "Welcome, Eli." Audrey stared. "How does it know him?" Ryan looked at the screen. "Your husband designed it for him." Eli stepped forward. The computer requested a password. Eli slowly raised his hands. Ryan watched. The boy signed a series of letters. Ryan typed them. The screen unlocked. Hundreds of files appeared. Financial records, medical research, photographs, names of executives, secret bank transfers. Audrey stared at the screen. "My company." Ryan nodded. "Someone inside your company has been stealing research for years." Audrey looked at Eli. "Why would they take you?" Ryan opened another file. A photograph appeared. Daniel, standing beside three men. One of them was Audrey's chief security officer, David. Another was the chairman of Sterling Medical. The third man, Audrey didn't recognize. Ryan zoomed in. His expression changed. "I know him." "Who?" "Former intelligence contractor." Audrey looked confused. "How do you know him?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. "I saw him overseas." "When?" 7 years ago." Audrey stared. "What was he doing?" Ryan looked at the photograph. "Moving people." Audrey's face went pale. "People. Children." Silence filled the room. Ryan continued. "He was involved in an illegal trafficking network." Audrey looked at Eli. "That's why he was afraid." Ryan nodded. "He wasn't just kidnapped. He was being used as leverage." Suddenly, a sound came from the passage. Someone was approaching. Ryan immediately turned off the monitor. "Hide." Audrey pulled Eli behind a metal cabinet. Ryan stood near the entrance. The hidden door opened. David stepped inside. He was holding a flashlight. "Eli." No response. "Mrs. Sterling." Silence. David slowly walked deeper into the room. Ryan waited. When David passed the cabinet, Ryan grabbed him. The flashlight hit the floor. David struggled. "You." Ryan pushed him against the wall. David stared in shock. "Who are you?" Ryan remained calm. "You already know." David's expression changed. "You were there." Ryan nodded. "Afghanistan." David's face went pale. "You should be dead." Ryan tightened his grip. "I heard that a lot." Audrey stepped out from behind the cabinet. "You know him." Ryan looked at her. "Yes." "Who is he?" Ryan answered. "David isn't just your security chief. He worked with the people who took Eli." David laughed nervously. "You don't understand." Ryan stared at him. "I understand exactly." David suddenly smiled. "Then you know what happens next." He pressed a small device in his hand. The underground room door locked. A countdown appeared on the computer. 2 o'clock. Audrey stared. "What is that?" Ryan looked at the screen. "An explosive." David smiled. 2 minutes. Audrey grabbed Eli. Ryan immediately moved toward the door. David laughed. "You can't stop it." Ryan looked at him. "I don't need to." He pulled the emergency release panel from the wall. David's smile disappeared. "What are you doing?" Ryan ripped out 2 wires. The lights flickered. The countdown stopped. 1:37. David stared. "You're bluffing." Ryan looked at him. "I've spent years disabling things like this." David suddenly attacked. Ryan blocked him. The 2 men struggled. Audrey moved Eli toward the hidden staircase. "Go." Eli refused. He pointed toward David. then signed something. Ryan saw it. His expression changed. What did he say? Audrey asked. Ryan answered. He says David wasn't the man who took him. Audrey froze. Then who was? Eli pointed at the photograph. The unknown third man. Ryan looked at the image, then slowly recognized him. His face became pale. No. Audrey asked. Who? Ryan whispered. Commander Blake. The man who trained me. Audrey stared at him. Your commander? Ryan nodded. The man officially declared dead 7 years ago. Suddenly, the computer screen changed. A live video appeared. An older man with gray hair looked directly into the camera. Commander Blake. He smiled. Hello, Ryan. Ryan stood completely still. Blake continued. You always were difficult to kill. Then he looked toward Eli. But the boy. He's the reason you're here. The screen went black. Ryan looked at Audrey. We have to leave. Why? Ryan's voice was quiet. Because this isn't about your company anymore. He looked at Eli. It's about something much bigger. And outside the mansion, 3 black SUVs stopped at the gates. 3 black SUVs stopped outside Sterling House. Ryan looked through the narrow basement window. They're here. Audrey held Eli close. Commander Blake. Ryan nodded. He wants the archive. Audrey looked at the computer. Then give it to him. Ryan turned toward her. What? She pointed at the screen. We can copy it. Ryan understood immediately. We create a false archive. Audrey nodded. Make him believe he won. Ryan quickly connected a second drive. Eli watched him, then suddenly raised his hands. Ryan looked at him. Eli signed. Dad said the real key is somewhere else. Ryan froze. Where? Eli pointed toward his own chest, then touched the silver necklace around his neck. Audrey stared. You've had that necklace since he disappeared? Eli nodded. Audrey gently touched it. There was a tiny metal pendant attached to the chain. Ryan examined it. It isn't a pendant. He twisted it. The small object opened. Inside was a microchip. Audrey covered her mouth. Daniel hid it with him. Ryan nodded. The archive isn't the key. The boy is. Upstairs. The mansion doors suddenly burst open. Men in dark clothing rushed inside. But before they reached the basement, the lights came back. Every security camera activated simultaneously. Audrey's security system had been restored. Ryan smiled. You did that. Audrey shook her head. No. Eli was standing beside the computer. His hand rested on the keyboard. Ryan stared. The boy had somehow activated the emergency system through Daniel's hidden program. Then the front gates opened. Police vehicles entered the property. Detective Harris stepped out. Ryan looked surprised. How did they find us? Audrey smiled. I sent the archive to Harris before we came downstairs. Ryan nodded. Smart. Within minutes, police surrounded the mansion. The attackers were arrested. But Commander Blake was gone. Ryan looked at the security footage. One SUV had escaped through a service road. He recognized the route. He's going to the old training facility. Audrey stared at him. Why? Because that's where Daniel kept the original research. Eli suddenly grabbed Ryan's hand. He signed. I know the place. Ryan looked at him. You've been there. Eli nodded. Audrey's face went pale. Eli. The boy looked at her, then signed. That's where Dad told me to wait. Audrey hugged him. This time, Eli hugged her back. An hour later, police vehicles surrounded the abandoned facility. Ryan, Audrey, and Detective Harris entered through the main building. Dust covered the floors. Old equipment filled the rooms. Then Ryan heard footsteps. He raised his hand. Everyone stopped. A voice came from the darkness. Ryan. Commander Blake stepped into the light. Older. Gray-haired. but still carrying himself like the soldier Ryan remembered. Ryan stared at him. "You should have stayed dead." Blake smiled. "You always were emotional." Audrey stepped forward. "You destroyed my family." Blake looked at her. "No. I tried to protect the research." "You kidnapped my son." Blake's expression hardened. "Your son was the only person who could unlock Daniel's archive." Ryan stepped between them. "You used a child." Blake shook his head. "Daniel used him first." Audrey froze. "What?" Blake pointed toward the computer. "Your husband knew someone would come for the research. He trained Eli to remember the location." Audrey looked at her son. Eli shook his head. Ryan noticed. "That's not true." Blake laughed. "You weren't there." Ryan's voice became cold. "I was." Blake stared at him. Ryan continued. "I was the one who rescued Daniel's team." Blake's expression changed. "You don't remember everything." Ryan stepped closer. "I remember enough." He pulled a small photograph from his jacket. "Daniel, Ryan, and several other soldiers. Taken 7 years earlier." Audrey stared at it. "You knew my husband?" Ryan nodded. "He saved my life. He was supposed to leave the country, but he stayed because he discovered the research was being stolen." Audrey's eyes filled with tears. "Why didn't he come home?" Ryan looked at Eli. "Because he believed the people around him were watching your family. He disappeared to protect you." Audrey covered her mouth. Blake suddenly reached for a weapon. Detective Harris shouted, "Don't move!" Blake stopped. Police surrounded him. Ryan looked directly at his former commander. "You lost." Blake smiled. "No. You found the archive." Ryan shook his head. "We found the truth." Harris arrested him. 6 months later, Sterling Medical released Daniel's research to hospitals around the world. The treatment was offered at dramatically reduced cost. Thousands of children received access to medicine that had once been unavailable to them. Audrey changed too. She stopped spending every waking hour in the executive office. She began eating breakfast with Eli, walking him to school, listening when he wanted to talk. And when he didn't, she waited. One afternoon, Eli sat beside Ryan on the mansion's back porch. He signed something. Ryan smiled. "What?" Eli signed again. Ryan laughed. "He says you're still his favorite janitor." Audrey smiled. "Favorite?" Ryan nodded. "He says you're the only one who listened." Audrey looked at Ryan. "You changed his life." Ryan shook his head. "He changed mine." Ryan never returned to the battlefield. Instead, Audrey offered him a position helping protect vulnerable families connected to Sterling Medical. Ryan accepted. But he kept one condition. "I don't want a title." Audrey smiled. "What do you want?" "A schedule that lets me pick up my daughter from school." Audrey laughed. "Deal." 1 year later, Ryan stood outside a small school auditorium. His daughter waited beside him. Eli and Audrey approached. Eli was smiling. He was talking now. Not constantly. Not perfectly. But freely. He walked toward Ryan. "Thank you." Ryan crouched. "For what?" Eli smiled. "For listening." Ryan hugged him. Audrey watched with tears in her eyes. She had once believed money could solve every problem. Then she learned something far more valuable. Sometimes a child doesn't need another doctor, another mansion, another expensive therapist. Sometimes he needs one person willing to sit beside him and say, "You don't have to talk to me." Ryan looked at Audrey. She smiled. And for the first time, she wasn't looking at him as a janitor, or a former SEAL, or a stranger. She was looking at him as the man who had helped bring her son home. Ryan took his daughter's hand. Eli took his mother's hand. And together, they walked toward the school doors. For people who had once been strangers, now a family of friends. And behind them, the past finally stayed where it belonged. Behind them,